Oyu, who was taking the reins of Yuki Tsunoda's car yesterday and certainly put it to good use with a storming lap to pole position and then a lights to flag victory with the fastest lap to boot. Well, I think he almost achieved the fastest lap. I think he went to NM Ahmed instead, but certainly showing his potential, and he'll be hoping for the double as well this weekend. And if I'm mistaken, I think there is Toshiki Oyu, and there is a home favourite. Billy Munger achieved a rookie podium yesterday, third place and fourth overall in the result. Had a great start initially to put himself up to third past his teammate Nikolai Kiergaard as the cars are heading out now. So effectively this is a straight 25-minute qualifying session, fastest time Etchi pole position. And there's one of our other newcomers this weekend, Dennis Hauger, the Norwegian driver, who has jumped into Liam Lawson's car this weekend. And there's Nikolai Kiergaard, the fellow Scandinavian from Denmark. Scored a strong result yesterday with third place on a circuit that he knows quite well, having raced here previously in British Formula 3. So just finding a bit of real estate on the track, a bit of space to find a quick lap. Also, with drivers who are here this weekend making an appearance at a circuit they know well. Manuel Maldonado is also here this weekend with Fortec Racing, being the cousin of former Formula 1 driver turned sports car ace Pastor Maldonado. Now this man here has got a lot of pressure this afternoon because he needs to score a good result and at least score some points, because there is a potential chance that if he doesn't score today, he may well relinquish the title to Marino Sarta, who's not here this weekend, but he needs to make sure that he scores as well as he can, because he cannot afford to not score, even get a retirement, because that's it. If that's the case, it could well be his championship chances over. So Dennis Hauger turns his way through Copse Corner, followed by Nikolai Kiergaard, as the fast laps start to come in thick and fast. And Elliot just mentioned before when he said that Lucas Dano is really a man under pressure, when we mentioned the fact that he needs to score today, otherwise we could potentially be seeing the title wrapped up this afternoon with the championship leader not even here this weekend, which is quite a scenario. At the end of today, there'll be 108 points available throughout the rest of the season, and currently the absent Marino Sarto does have a 108-point lead over Teo Martin Motorsports' Lucas Dunner. Dunner's weekend so far has consisted of technical problems in first practice. I believe he ran out of fuel in second practice, had an engine change overnight, then a bit of a setup misdirection in qualifying. Crashed out the race on lap 1 yesterday after classing a curb and potential chassis damage. I haven't heard the official word on that since. So he'll be really hoping he can score some important points here today to ensure he's got the title. But it's a good day for the drivers who are absent this weekend. Sato did a pretty good job on his Formula 2 debut. And obviously Formula 2 is the highest single-seater series outside of Formula 1. And the two Red Bull juniors, Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda, have just won in a wet-to-dry race at Monza. Finished 1-2. Yeah, Tsunoda was the one that picked up the victory. Lawson second, so good to see some Euroformula Open talent being put to good use and certainly progressing high up the ranks. And of course, Marino Sato and Yuki Tsunoda, two very capable Japanese talents. And of course, yesterday we also discovered another one, of course, in Toshiki Oyu, who is in Yuki Tsunoda's car this weekend. And it's a car he's very familiar with, of course, having raced a similar chassis in Japanese F3. But the way he just adapted to Euroformula Open and to Silverstone, I think blew us both away. The fact he stormed the pole position, had a great start, led every single lap, was on the pace straight away, took a dominant victory, and certainly showed us that already he's going almost, takes provisional pole already in that lap by nearly 3/4 of a second. I mean, there's almost no stopping the guy.
Yeah, his 1 minute 49.477 second lap. That is underneath the track record that was set in practice yesterday. He broke it again yesterday to a 149.073. So he is only 4/10 off the track record he set yesterday. Highly likely that he's going to beat it at this rate.
And he's not afraid to push, because I remember back in qualifying yesterday at that corner sequence, he was going through and we saw a great shot of him just catching a big bit of a tail slide through the apex of Chapel. So he's not afraid to push as hard as he can, and he is a Honda junior. And even though, yes, he is in Yuki Tsunoda's car in Red Bull colours, he's not a Red Bull back driver. Although given the performance this weekend, I'm sure it might be turning one or two heads in the Austrian company's driver program because of the efforts he's put in today.
Yeah, there was definitely some talk online of Red Bull raising their eyebrows at this performance and having a look at him for 2020. But we'd have to verify those before reporting on them properly.
We're sort of discussing maybe it's a cheeky ploy by Red Bull to stick him in a Red Bull, keep him in Yuki Tsunoda's car, but keep the branding the same as it was in that car to maybe kind of entice him to possibly come on board. But we'll wait and see how that develops. As Yuki Tsunoda just winding up for another lap. So, not Yuki Tsunoda's car with Toshiki Oyu at the wheel, if I get that right. Here is Linus Lundqvist, who had a bit of a tricky weekend so far, but he's now 7th fastest already at the moment. Of course, former British F4 and British F3 driver, so he knows Silverstone pretty well after visiting here once or twice. Goes up to 4th with that time, 1 minute 49.901.
Did not help that he kicked out quite a bit of gravel coming out of the final corner there.
That might not help one or too many drivers who are coming up behind him, but impressive lap so far from Cameron Dasting, American. He's now up to 2nd fastest at a 149.816, and just behind him is Nikolai Kiergaard, who we mentioned is having a better weekend than in previous weekends so far this year. As we said, it's a circuit he knows well, because of course he's raced here in British F4 on the national layout and British F3 on the Grand Prix layout as well. So certainly it's a circuit he's used to, and I think that in many cases might be helping in the car, which he should now be fairly familiar with after half a season.
Yep, and it's a circuit his Carlin team knows like the back of their hand, as they race in multiple British championships. The fact that we've already got 6 drivers, 5 drivers in the 1 minute 49.8s, Toshiki Oyu on 149.4 and Linus Lundqvist on 149.9, and these are essentially the first flying laps of these drivers, and they're already setting very quick pace. So I expect we will see a new record being set. Enar Mahmed, one of 3 British drivers in the field, just hit 149.7 with the fastest middle sector of the day, a 47.7 second sector.
Yep, we're seeing Enar Mahmed at the wheel of, I keep getting this wrong, he's with Marino Sato's car this weekend.
Marino Sato's car, yeah.
Because Marino Sato, of course, as we mentioned, is over in Monza at Formula 2. So Enar Mahmed, who is back at a circuit he's familiar with, in a chassis he's familiar with in terms of the actual car itself, the Dallara F317, because he's a car he's been racing pretty much regular over in Japanese F3 this season. It's his first appearance in the UK this year in terms of racing, and showing he hasn't lost any knowledge of the UK circuits by going that quick. Lundqvist goes across the line, and again showing improved pace from Lundqvist. Had a bit of an off day yesterday, but 4th fastest in qualifying with that time so far. Looks as though he's finding his mojo a bit this morning.
Yeah, I think this is one of the weaker circuits for his team. We got a debris on track notice at turn 17, which I believe is for the gravel that Lundqvist actually kicked up on his previous lap through Woodcott and Luffield.
Yeah,
I believe that would be.
I reckon so. So, just being careful to make that car. That's Caelan Williams on the right-hand side, former Australian Formula 3 champion. Currently sat at the moment in 9th fastest in the times with some work to do. Provisional pole sitter Toshiki Oyu has decided he wants to take a break from setting fastest times by jumping into pit lane.
As Kiergaard jumps up to 2nd with 149.57, he's under a 10th behind. You're seeing a replay of Billy Munger using a little too much curb and way too much grass through the club section of the lap, I believe. No, the village section.
If it wasn't awake before, that jolt will certainly have woken him up then, I think, going over the curbs, and that might not have done too much, anything friendly to the underneath of the chassis, I'm afraid, but Carl will have to have a look at that in between sessions. So there is Toshiki Oyu, of course, in the car usually driven by Yuki Tsunoda. Just having a few conversations, and we were talking about the fact that he does speak English, but he's got limited sort of select phrases he's managed to learn to communicate with engineers and indeed with any of the TV personnel. And so he's certainly learning pretty quickly on the fly in terms of learning how to communicate with his team, as well as obviously get used to the car and how Motor Park set it up compared to the car he usually drives over in Japanese F3, which he has raced wheel to wheel with Enar Mahmed battling for 3rd in the points, as you mentioned yesterday.
And Ahmed drives for Motor Park in Japanese Formula 3. Both of those drivers actually have a notebook they carry everywhere. Oyu's obviously carries his English phrasing, so he can help communication with the team. Enar Mahmed carries basically the notes of every single circuit he's ever driven on, every single lap he's done since he started in cars in 2015, I think. So that's a highly valuable notebook for him.
And I think it just shows that it doesn't matter how experienced you are, you know, any notes that you've taken, you can always go back to them and refer to them if you need to, in many cases. So it doesn't matter if you're a Formula 1 driver, etc. If you need to go back and sort of look at how you took a corner maybe 3 or 4 years ago into what the notes you've made, you can always go back and use that if you're struggling to kind of find a bit of pace. This is Stuart Wiltshire, who's one of our local drivers in this weekend. He appeared at Spa, I think, recently as well. But that's a bit of an independent team. And he was here a couple of weeks ago in the Formula 3 Open races, but just learning the ropes, the Euroformula Open way, and a little bit off the pace. But good to see him on the grid, at least giving his all this weekend.
Yep, it's great to have extra entries here in Euroformula Open, and especially teams that come from other smaller Formula 3 series and want the challenge of going up against the best in Europe. And obviously Stuart Wiltshire is normally teammate to Stefano Lini in the MSV Formula 3 Cup, and Lini was also with Euroformula at Spa and did a great job. So it'd be great to see them come back for Barcelona and Monza, the final 2 rounds of the season.
Whilst we're looking at that sequence, talking about Enno Ahmed's notebook, Dennis Hauger crept up on us and actually popped to second quickest with the fastest middle sector of anyone I noticed on his lap. So he's gone up to P2 with a 1:49.556. And actually, looking at that's a very impressive lap for him, because that's now less than a tenth off of Toshiki Oi's provisional pole time. So that's actually a very good effort from Dennis Hauger. It means we'll get, at the moment provisionally, a pair of Red Bull liveried cars on the front row of the grid. But Hauger certainly showing his knowledge of Silverstone quite succinctly as Stuart Wiltshire comes across the line and remains 14th.
If we look at the laps that each driver has set their fastest time on, all of them have pretty much been on the most recent lap, apart from Oyu, who set his basically on his first flying lap, which kind of shows how in control of this he is at the moment.
So 11 minutes of the session left to go. There's Christian Hahn, one of the 3 Carlin cars here this weekend. Christian Hahn, the young Brazilian. Of course, his father Marcelo races for Teo Martin in GT Open. And Christian is sharing the team, of course, with Nikolai Kiergaard and Billy Munger. So there's the top 6 on the bottom of the screen. Toshiki Oyu on provisional pole from Dennis Hauger by 79 1/1000 of a second. Nikolai Kiergaard's also just behind him as well. So the top 3 are covered by only just under a tenth of a second. So very close on the top of the times. Enno Ahmed 4th, Cameron Dass 5th, and Linus Lundqvist 6th from Billy Munger and Lucas Dunner, a man who admittedly is under a bit of pressure today to try and retain any chance of holding on to chances for the championship. And then we've got Caleb Williams 9th and Nicholas Crutten, who is driving the car which Julian Hanses normally drives in this championship, but he's otherwise occupied as well this weekend, which means that Nicholas has stepped in, and the young German currently 10th fastest ahead of Manuel Maldonado, British Formula 3 regular, Christian Hahn, the Angolan national driver Rui Andrade, and this man Stuart Wiltshire, who is carrying on with another hot lap to try and keep on improving, and he is going quicker on this lap. He set personal best in the first and middle sectors, so steadily finding more pace this morning compared to yesterday.
Yeah, he's done respectable sector times now. It's obviously all about track time for the teams that aren't in this championship as regularly as the others. And I imagine Wiltshire, he could be improving on every single lap in this session. He's only set 4, which is actually less than anyone else there. So
out of Luffield and through Woodcote he goes. Stuart Wiltshire, foot to the floor as he heads to the timing line, and his time goes to a 1:54.756. Admittedly, he does remain bottom of the times, but more importantly, he has gone quicker in all 3 sectors, so he is getting quicker and quicker. And I think effectively he's mainly using this clear track to use it to his full advantage to try and gain as much time and knowledge as possible to feed back to his engineers. So by the time they go to make changes for the car for race 2, it feels a lot better and a lot faster than it did yesterday in race 1.
Yeah, if Stuart knows he's going to be qualifying quite near the back anyway, then it's best to get the most out of this qualifying session and use it strategically to think more about the race as well.
So here's our onboard camera that we've got this weekend with Billy Munger on his home circuit. Good to see sort of Billy in front of his home crowd this weekend. Currently sat 7th faster than the times. Again, he was 4th in yesterday's race. Made a great start by beating Nikolai Kiergaard away from the line, and then worked his way through into what was a bit of almost a lonely 4th place again, because he wasn't really losing that much time to the cars behind, but he wasn't really able to keep pace with the top 3 in many cases. But he was really holding his own up in 4th place, and it managed to see him get a rookie podium in 3rd place for his troubles too. So Billy's certainly showing that, hand controls or not, he's still a very quick driver, whatever you put him in.
Yeah, he almost, you could say, cost himself an extra point yesterday, and that with Enno Ahmed and Nikolai Kiergaard in front, they battled and then they backed off and went for the fastest lap point at the end, and Billy didn't do that, and that potentially could have awarded him an extra point. See him just complete his lap, see where he is now, currently in 7th, going for the first sector now. He's only on a 1:49.8, which is 4 tenths off the current pole lap, but is significantly quicker than I believe than the lap times that were being set yesterday.
So Billy makes his way out of the arena section, and let's see if he can improve on 7th fastest. He's And looking at times, it's an incredibly close and competitive qualifying session. I mean, comparing to, I find, sort of, for example, yesterday's results from qualifying, there was only a small gap between the top two of Toshiki Oyu and Enem Ahmed, whereas here it's even closer, I think, compared to yesterday. So Billy Munger then winds himself up for a flying lap. Across the line goes number 31, Carlo Machine, up towards Copse Corner. And his quest now, as we said, is to go ahead and try and improve on 7th fastest. So out of Copse Corner, effectively flat, I'd imagine, in a Formula 3 car, then into Maggotts, Beckett's and Chapel. This fantastically fast, high-speed sequence of corners that really is a driver's favourite for many. Out of that complex and onto the Hangar Straight, and he's kept immediately across to the left-hand side, so he's letting a Rui Andrade through, so I suspect possibly he's given up on that lap already. So whether or not he simply just wasn't happy with the way he took that sequence of corners, or simply just backed off because Rui was on a hot lap, I'm not sure, but either way, Betty's hot lap, which looked pretty decent to start with in the first few corners, he seemed to have aborted it for some reason.
I think his first sector had already been slower than his previous lap, so he had nothing to gain from completing this lap at full speed. And also, if he does want to get back into the pits and feed back to engineers, possibly make a front wing adjustment or something like that, then he needs to do it quickly because there's only 6 minutes left of this session. You'd expect that to take place for at least 2 minutes while they're working on the car. And obviously an out lap is around 2 minutes as well.
Just saw a shot of Trevor Carlin, the man behind Carlin, of course, which has had a long history in single seaters in Formula 3, as well as, of course, recently, these days in Formula 2, IndyCar as well, they've had some experience in as well. And Billy Munger now, I think, will just be backing up a little bit. Here's Rui Andrade, the Angolan nationality driver. Currently sat 30th at the moment, but he's 13th, but the crazy thing is he's only 1.1 seconds off the pole top, and that just shows really how closely matched the field is. The fact that he's only 1.1 off, but he's back down towards the bottom of the times. That just shows really how quick these guys really are. But also, there's not that much to choose between them, the entire field.
Yeah, he's never been to Silverstone prior to this weekend, so he's cramming essentially 10 years of learning from his team and his driver coach as well to essentially into 4 track sessions to try and go as quickly as can. So it's been a great progression of learning over the weekend.
If I'm correct, that's a single car outfit as well, so they've got to do a lot of work. And single car outfits like Rui Andrade, they've got to work a lot harder because when you've got teams like Carl and the Motor Park, you've got 2, 3, 4 drivers to feed data from, to maybe, if you want to, unless you're in a championship battle, to share data, to kind of share what the fastest way is to get the car set up to work together. Whereas if you've got a single car effort, you haven't got anyone else to rely on any feedback from. You have to do it all yourself. You have to go out there. You have to be the explorer to discover where you've got grip, where you haven't, to feed it back to the engineers. So single car teams have to work a lot harder, of course, than multi-car teams because they've only got one driver to rely on in terms of feedback compared to 3 or 4 that may either give different setup directions or all the same, depending on their driving styles and the track conditions. So it's a lot tougher, I think, for someone like Rui Andrade. And to be only 1.1 seconds off, regardless of how competitive it is, I think for his first time here, to be fair, is actually quite a good effort. And
we may be seeing the same with Teo Martin Motorsport, which is running Lucas Dunner as a single car entry this weekend. He's obviously normally near the front, and he's had a weekend of troubles and is only in 8th place. But also, this is a flyaway round for the 2 Spanish squads, Drive It School and Teo Martin, as well as Motor Park. The rest of the teams here are British, so this is almost an easier round logistically for them, and that means they can almost devote more time to concentrating on the on-track stuff than, making sure you reach your plane in the airport on time.
Now here's something, but I was just about to say Billy Munger was 3/10 up with the fastest middle sector, and then he loses the back end through left field.
Has he kept the engine ticking?
Doesn't sound like it, I'm afraid. Dear. And the rear tyres are dug in the gravel. Although he's refired it possibly. I think he's trying to get it going. He has refired it, he's trying to get it going, but has he beached the rear tyres in the gravel? I think he may have done. What could have been for Billy Munger on that lap. So yellow flags at turn 17, which is Luffield.
He's got visor up, so I think he is very much checking the dashboard. Because obviously he's had, with his control system, they've had a few technical issues with the throttle a few times this season.
So just on the replay, it just went way too hot into the corner.
Understeer becomes oversteer, try and correct it. It just comes out from behind you.
Here's the exterior view, it just turns in and the rear just wants to escape, and away it went. And round goes Munger, the rear tyres. they're only on the edge of the gravel track, but that gravel in itself at Lufwood is quite deep, so in many cases. So you only have to be on it in it a little bit and try and spin your wheels, and that's it. You can be stuck.
And we have a red flag, which means with 3 minutes left to go and would say a 2-minute out lap, I think drivers will only have one flying lap left in this session. And that means they will have 14 cars on track at once, which split over 5 kilometres. Should give everyone just enough space. But if you want to pick up a tow, you may be deliberately going slower. And we saw how badly that went in Monza this weekend. So.
Yeah, that there was also there were some shenanigans in Formula 1 qualifying in Q3, which not many people were very impressed with. But if you want to find out what those were, we'll let you discover that yourself rather than talk about it too much. So, with the red flag, how it stands at the moment, Toshiki Oyu, yesterday's pole sitter and race winner, is currently the fastest man in this session once again, but only by 79 one-thousandths of a second from Dennis Hauger. So it's 2 Red Bull liveried cars on the front row of the grid at the moment, with Nikolai Kjærgaard third fastest, Enem Ahmed fourth. Cameron Dass is 5th fastest ahead of Linus Lundqvist in 6th. Billy Munger is 7th, although that time could have put him a lot higher afterwards. The marshals are going to try and push him out as much as they can, but believe it or not, a Formula 3 car is actually a lot more difficult to push than it might look. These might be lightweight machines, but they still weigh several hundred kilograms, and so it's one of the easiest things to push, particularly when the rear tyres are beached in the gravel. There is undoubtedly so far the driver of the weekend, Toshiki Oyu, on his Euroformula Open debut.
I'm not sure if under red flag conditions, if that counts as part ferme, and if teams are allowed to work on the cars during this time, or if they have to return to the track in the same, essentially, specification they were in once the red flag was waved.
Looks like somebody went out there in the red flag, unless they just set a lap, just started a lap when the red flag came out. But either way, there was a car going around under red flag conditions, which was quite odd.
Looking at the track map, that could have been one of the motor park cars.
Yeah, it did have sorts of colours. Now that's a good sight. Billy Munger has managed to get back out again. And if he knows exactly where he can go quicker now, there might be a potential chance here where he may still get an opportunity if he can find that time and find a piece of clear track. So the car that was out there, that was 33, so that was Enem Ahmed. So not quite sure why he was still out when the red flag was there, unless he just started a lap before he came in.
And there's good reason why Rui Andrade's already left his pit box to head to the end of the pit lane, because with so little time left, if you're at the very end of the pit lane, you're going to be the first out. And for teams like Motorpark and DriveX close to the entry, you don't want to be behind a queue of cars. So Rui's got the right idea. Whether that means his tyres are going to get a little cold, just sitting at the end of the pit lane while he waits for the session to restart, might not work. But obviously, it's better to actually be around the lap to actually set a time than be waiting behind other drivers.
This is going to be crucial then, because Billy Munger, he's got 3 minutes to go. His tyres look good to me. Looks like he scrubbed them off pretty quickly. And he'll do that when he goes down to scrub his tyres off to get them clean anyway. So looks as though they've given the car a quick check over. It was a simple spin, so there shouldn't, and I don't think is any damage on that car, which is thankful. So he will go ahead and line up at the end.
And as he didn't drive forwards into the gravel, I don't think it would have ingested any, if that makes sense, because only the rear wheels kind of slid backwards into it. So there was nothing to clear out, hopefully, from the diffuser, etc.
Yep. So that means he'll be able to join the back of the queue, and he'll get another bite of the cherry to possibly go ahead and set that. So effectively, in many cases, he'll have reported back that the second sector felt good, or at least Carlo would have told him that second sector was, at that point, the fastest second sector of the session so far. So there's definite pace in there for Billy over a single lap. So whatever work which Carlin did over the night before qualifying this morning certainly seems to have paid dividends. Just quickly, we're just pushing away the gravel, which was brought onto track after recovering Billy Munger's car, I think. Just making sure that it's a nice clear track to make it fair for everyone. So very, very small delay. It's not the first red flag of the day, because we did also have one in the GT Cup Open qualifying session when we had a car off in the gravel. And then as soon as the red flag came out, we had another car go off into the gravel at Stowe. So that caused a bit of a lengthy sort of 10-15 minute red flag to get both cars cleared up. You see at the front of the queue, Caelan Williams car number 21, of course, former Australian Formula 3 champion. Pit lane will open at 2 minutes past 10, which is in just under 2 minutes' time. So the cars will be heading back out very shortly. So Caleb Williams will be out first. I can see Linus Lundqvist's car second in the queue. And maybe Manuel Maldonado, I think he's third, just behind him, I think, by the looks of it.
Yeah, and then Nikolai Kjærgaard and I think it's Christian Hahn behind them. And Christian Hahn's down in 13th place. He has set 10 laps, but his best time's on his 5th lap, so he hasn't improved in a long time. And he's 1.1 seconds, which is, not far off. But 13th place on the grid would be very difficult to improve from there during the race.
We talk about Rui Andrade being down there in his last few laps. He has actually managed to move up from 13th to 10th, and he managed to find about 0.4 of a second, which is really good. So Rui now put himself up into P10 with 3 minutes to go. So just a quick reminder then, Toshiki Oyu on provisional pole position with 3 minutes and 2 seconds left in the session once it gets back underway. Dennis Hauger's second fastest. You can see the timing sort of scoring board on the left-hand side. Nikolai Kjærgaard third fastest. Top three only separated by 1/10 of a second, which is pretty crucial. Enem Ahmed fourth fastest. Cameron Dass, the American, in fifth. Linus Lundqvist in sixth. Billy Munger, who was on a very quick lap, and I'm sure would have at least put himself in amongst maybe the top three had he finished that lap and not had the spin at Luffield, which brought out the red flag. Currently sits seventh, but gets another chance to possibly move himself much higher up the order. Lucas Dunner, who, as we talked about earlier on in this session, really needs to score some points and have a much better day than he did yesterday, because it has been for him a pretty up and down and pretty awful weekend with mechanical problems, engine changes, incidents, and even the team forgetting to put fuel in the car at one point, or at least not fueling it enough to get back to pit lane. So green flag flies and timer restarts once again as the cars make their way back out. Rui Andrade is going straight back out again, as is Billy Munger, as is also Dennis Hauger. So the crucial part here is going to be to try and find as much clear track as you can. Although that said, do you possibly try and stick with somebody to try and get a tow? Or do you just look for the clear track and push as hard as you dare in these last 2.5 minutes to find a hot lap? So, as I say, I think we're only going to get one single flying lap from everyone else. So effectively, this has to be the one for each of them. There's Cameron Dass with the Stars and Stripes on a little sort of aerodynamic sort of turning vane on the side pod there as they come into Stowe Corner. Looks like Linus Lundqvist has decided to head the queue up towards Vale and Club. This is a crucial part here. It's a proper one-lap shootout here. But of course, as we said, the main thing is that you've got to find the trade-off. Do you want the tow from somebody but have to deal with possible traffic of cars in front of them also trying to go quickly? Or do you sacrifice that to use the clear track to try and get yourself a hot lap in there? So it's a difficult choice for these guys in terms of who they follow, if anyone, and how close they follow to try and get any kind of an aerodynamic advantage down the straight.
Given how close the lap times are so far and how little time we do have left, I imagine nobody will be backing out of a lap, even if they do make a mistake here. So traffic shouldn't be an issue. But if you do get such a strong tow that you then are in a position where you could overtake someone, that's when the second guessing is going to come in, and that'll actually be more likely to lead to mistakes by those drivers. If they're thinking, oh, do I dive inside at the final second, potentially at the cost of my lap time, or do I hold back, which may also cost me some lap time.
And of course the crucial thing is that if you're passing people whilst you're on a hot lap effectively, the driver who's being passed may well argue that, well, they was on a hot lap as well, so they might feel their lap was ruined in many cases if they were trying to go even quicker. So everyone winding up for these final flying laps, and there's a bit of a race going on here between, looks like I think that's Dennis Hauger and Rui Andrade, I think, so between these two on track together. And I don't think Hauger can appreciate that Rui Andrade is siding up the inside here, although Hauger's going to stick it around the outside, keep his foot to the floor and head round Cop's corner in front. So whether that chance for Rui has now gone remains to be seen.
And I think I understand why Hauger's done that, because throughout this weekend, Christian Hahn has been the fastest driver in the speed traps. And if he can get a slipstream of Christian Hahn, the car in front, then that's obviously going to help him going down the two main straights of this circuit.
And he's doing it. Look, he's actually just starting to tow up behind the number 12 as they come down towards turn 1. So in terms of sector times, fastest first sector of anybody and fastest through the speed trap for Nikolai Kjærgaard, currently third fastest. He's only just quicker than Dennis Hauger, so that tow from Christian Hahn has certainly helped him out. Now, Billy Munger's on a personal best. He's about roughly a tenth or so away from that fastest first sector of anyone. Checkered flag is out on the session, so the fight for pole is on.
We want to see Kiergaard second sector, who's currently chasing down Manuel Maldonado, who may get in the way through this run of corners here.
And as for our man Toshiki Oyu, well, he's just going out to snatch pole position. But anyway, he's done a 31.9 in the first sector, so I'm sure that must have been a benefit of a toe or a really mega committed run through Maggots, Beckless and Chapel and through Copse to make that happen. Either way, he's on a hot one. Kiergaard is up on the fastest pace at the moment.
I believe Oyu was actually the last out the pits. So he's almost got the mega toe from 12 other cars. Right now.
He's pulled off the Sebastian Vettel trick, the last one out, the last one to cross the line. So up to the checkered flag they'll come. Nikolai Kiergaard will be the first one to come across and set a time of the main contenders. Lundqvist goes up to second quickest, 1:49.517 with that effort. Kiergaard doesn't improve. He lost time in the second and third sectors.
Dennis Hauger goes top at 1:49.107, 0.37 seconds. Cameron Dass is now on top, 1:49.065. And we're getting another of the drivers crossing the line. Billy Munger's up to third at 1:49.298. But here comes Oyu, who's the driver that everyone is watching. He set personal bests and the fastest of the whole session in the first two sectors. And he comes around Woodcock, the final corner of the lap. Wonder what he's going to set.
He was 4 tenths up in the second sector. He goes at
1:48.705. That is 3 tenths under the track record that was set yesterday. Incredible lap.
Stunning pole time from Toshiki Oyu. He's done it again with a last flying lap. There's a look of improvement. Yeah, that was all right from the team. So 1:48.705, a new track record once again for that man Toshiki Oyu. The Honda Junior does it again. 2 poles in a row. And there is the final provisional result with a fantastic final flourish. It'll be Toshiki Oyu on provisional pole position with a 1:48.7. Cameron Dass, the American, second quickest with a 1:49.065 with his final effort. Dennis Hauger third. Billy Munger up to fourth, ahead of Ian Ahmed in fifth position. Then it's Lundqvist sixth, Nikolai Kiergaard seventh, and Christian Hall and Nicholas Critton. And Lucas Donnacrucci back down in 10th. That's going to worry him for his championship chances. Caleb Williams 11th, Rui Andrade 12th. And then Manuel Maldonado and Stuart Wiltshire round out the 14 qualifiers. I guess the question really is, Elliot, is there any stopping Toshiki Oyu? 2 poles. He's now possibly could be on course for a second victory, providing he has a flawless race. I mean, really, if you're a betting man, you really wouldn't put any money anywhere else other than this man right here, would you?
Definitely. I think it's very interesting that one of the other teams on the grid, Carlin, they drafted in Formula 2 racer and former Super Formula racer Nobuharu Matsushita at the Hungaroring. And he also showed this kind of pace, but nothing as imperious as Oyu has. So I'm thinking this is a very special performance and a very special weekend for Oyu. And I imagine Red Bull will probably be calling his phone right now.
And I think whilst the eyes of the world, single-seater world may well be mostly on Monza, we shouldn't forget the fact that, of course, this is an important weekend as well. And I think that anyone watching here at Silverstone who's looking at their teams for next year, whether it is for maybe International Formula 3 or Formula 2, or whatever they choose to do, maybe even Euroformula Open for next year. I think there's a good opportunity here for Toshiki Oyu to certainly turn quite a few heads. He's done that already. I'm sure it will certainly be an opportunity for any team that wants to snap him up.
I believe that's sharing the front row of the grid with him is Cameron Dass. I believe that is his first front row in Euroformula. Dennis Hauger, 16 years old, Norwegian. This is his first weekend of Formula 3 racing entirely, and he's in third on the grid. And of course, Billy Munger, after spinning and red flagging the session, has come back out and top of the Carlin drivers in fourth place.
And we saw yesterday how Cookie got way off the line, beating Nikolai Kiergaard into Copse corner. And he's always said, that you find rather sort of amusingly, that his start's never that good. But of course, I think yesterday's start would beg to differ.
And one of the problems Motor Park has had this year is at starts a bit of a clutch, because the engines have been tuned for this year, and they had different, I presume, mappings for their cars from the championship they raced in previously, and it caught Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda out several times over the first half of the year. And the chances are that Dennis Hauger, who obviously hasn't raced a Formula 3 car before until yesterday, may also find those problems again tomorrow, which would help Billy.
We'll wait and see. It is the Japanese sensation Toshiki Oyu then, who shows his class with another pole position. But Cameron Dass, the American, will certainly try and push him as hard as he can with his personal best grid slot, it seems, for second place. Dennis Hauger and Billy Munger will certainly do all they can, as will Enem Ahmed. But the man under pressure, really, in terms of the championship contention, with Marino Sato not here, it's a 108-point gap at the top of the standings. And he needs to make sure he scores later on this afternoon. Otherwise, that could be the championship over with the champion leader not even here. So there is your pole position sitter, and Alfredo will be down the pit lane with our pole sitter very shortly. So just going over to make sure they get themselves weighed to make sure that they are of the correct minimum weight. And handshakes all round for Toshiki Oyi on what is now becoming a beautiful Sunday morning here at Silverstone. Much better track conditions. A little bit damp yesterday, a little bit sort of greasy, with some rain in the air, but thankfully it's much brighter conditions, and it should bode well for this afternoon's second Euroformula Open race of the weekend. So that race is due at around 2 o'clock this afternoon, so be sure to tune in for live coverage of that with myself and Elliot Wood on commentary for that. And we'll see if Toshiki Oyi can do the double this weekend after a spectacular debut yesterday, and certainly a hidden talent that a lot of people are certainly taking notice of